Okay, so as Denise said, I'm Lauren. Most of you know who I am. Some of you I haven't had the pleasure of talking to personally yet, but it will come. Feel free to just come up to me and give a big hug. I'm a really friendly person. So like she said, I'm going to be talking about 2 chapters from this book. And basically what this book is it's stories from previous Cutco reps, and they give you some advice on how to improve your demo or how to get over certain fears that we have when it comes to our demos. So how many of us in the room have a fear of client objections? Hate it when, Mr. and Mrs. Jones say, oh, I don't have the money. I know I do. I hate it. Because it would be just so much easier if they said, yes, I would love to buy an ultimate set. Unfortunately, sales don't work that way. So we don't have to be robots concerned with just solely selling. You don't have to just throw back the counter objection when they throw it at you. So in Paulette Tucciaroni, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, so I'm just going to call her Paulette. In her story in The Cutting Edge Sales, she talks about how to overcome client objections and how they're nothing to be feared. So she's a New Jersey native, she's a mom, she's currently a medical doctor who used to be a military doctor. She used to be, the onboard doctor that the Navy deployed, but she's also a previous Cutco sales rep. She shares how she still regularly utilizes and applies the skills she acquired while she was working for Cutco. And she mainly talks about the objection cycle and emotional intelligence and how it pertains to her career as a doctor still. So the objection cycle. I know that during my first week of selling Cutco, I was terrified of client objections. I hated it when my parents threw objections at me just to get me to practice. I didn't want to be one of those pushy sales reps that, were forcing Mr. and Mrs. Jones to buy something because, I'd rather be liked than make the sale. As weird as that sounds, I'm a friendly person. So I was taking their objections as more of rejections. However, what I did fail to realize is that customer objections are not thrown at us because Mr. and Mrs. Jones don't like us. They're based on factors within their own lives that have nothing to do with us personally. Maybe Mr. and Mrs. Jones just lost their job and they actually can't afford Cutco. We don't know. We don't live our lives with Mr. and Mrs. Jones. But it's not a personal vendetta against us. So for those of us who don't remember what the objection cycle is, I'm going to get you guys to write it down, but it does consist of 4 steps. Number 1 is acknowledge the customer's concerns. Number 2 is provide more information.
What was the second one?
Provide more information. Number 3 is reclose the sale. And number 4 is be quiet and wait for a response. So as I previously mentioned, Paulette talks about how the objection cycle still helps her with her job as a doctor today. And when I was reading that, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever, she's totally pulling my leg. The objection cycle is only useful if you have a job in sales. Unfortunately, I was proven wrong. She gave an example of how it still works today. So if a patient said to her, I know this medication can help me, but I don't want to deal with the side effects, this is what her response would be to her patient. Ma'am, I hear that you have Ma'am, I hear you about those side effects, and you're absolutely right. They have been reported. However, I think given the severity of your symptoms right now, not acting on them would mean not doing my job. In fact, if you do experience some side effects, I want you to call me right away because that means the medicine is working and I want to know as soon as possible. So are you ready to start this trial of medication? Sounds a lot like the objection cycle, doesn't it? She acknowledges the patient's concerns, she reintroduces the treatment, and obviously the patient at the end says yes to the medication. So obviously it's a really great thing we learned here because, all these skills we learn are going to help us in the future with our future jobs, even if they're not with Cutco. Another concept that she discusses is the utilization of emotional intelligence. Now, does anyone know what emotional intelligence is? Go for it.
Reading their expression or their body language to understand where they're at, how they feel, if they're interested or if they're being bored to death.
Yeah, exactly. It's being able to understand your client emotionally. Now, I'm pretty sure we can all agree that it's easier to relate to someone who's 25 as opposed to a client that's 70, simply because we haven't been 70 yet, we don't know what it's like. So a way to overcome this that she talks about is to mirror your client. So this is what we were talking about last week, you know, if they're loud and outgoing, you have to be loud and outgoing. If they're shy and reserved, you have to become shy and reserved. You know, if they're keeping distance from you across the table, you have to maintain that distance. Don't, like, encroach on their personal bubble. So with this technique, you will find that you will be able to understand your clients more efficiently, even if, like, they're 40 or 50 years older than you. However, even with the mirroring technique, do you guys always think you're going to get 10 recos per appointment? Is every reco going to agree to an appointment with you? No. But in this profession, I've learned you can't take rejections personally. We do have to persevere. Like this past week, I went on 4 demos, had no sales. I was totally down in the dumps. I was like, I'm the worst sales rep ever. And, you know, I texted Denise and I was like, I suck. And she was like, no, you know, you got this, just refocus. And then I booked 2 more demos. I ended up selling 2 essential sets. My week totally turned around, and those 4 people that said no to me previously didn't matter anymore. So it's what everyone keeps telling you, you know, like, don't get down on yourself because, you know, you have 10 no sales in a row, because there is a sale just around the corner. And there were some examples in the book of, like, people who haven't succeeded at first. So, like, Einstein didn't talk till he was 4. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Steven Spielberg was rejected from film school. So failure isn't really something we should take personally. We should take it as an opportunity to grow and improve our own intelligence, emotional intelligence. The next chapter in the book I'm going to talk about is from a guy named John Israel. And he is a motivational speaker now that talks to youth. But he is also a member of the Cutco Hall of Fame, because he used to be a Cutco rep just like all of us here. So we've all heard the story of King Midas, yes? King that touches and turns everything to gold. Well, he talks about a technique called the Midas touch. And he shares with us that it's a known fact that 80% of the company's profit is controlled by 20% of the reps. And he claims that all these reps have something called the Midas touch. Now, the Midas touch isn't about magically getting your client to open their checkbook. It's the ability to add value to yourself as well as the product so that they not only want to do business with you, but want you to do business with everyone else. So the Midas touch consists of 3 steps, and I'm going to ask you guys to write this down. Number 1 is to create value. Now, by creating value, I mean in both the product and yourself as the salesperson. Now, value in the product in terms of Cutco is easy to do because it does practically sell itself. However, clients do need to be able to trust their reps and feel that you have their best interest at heart and feel safe in making a purchase with you. Step 2 is create expectations and understanding. So Israel talks about the Mr. Hyde, Dr. Jekyll effect, that a lot of reps have, you know, everyone knows who Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is, right? Yeah, okay. So, you know, some sales reps will sit there and promise anything to their client in order to make a sale. But they, you know, once the sale's made, they forget the little promises. So as sales reps, we do have to make sure that when selling a product, we keep true to all the promises we make with our clients so that they do feel that they can trust us. And so through doing this, our clients will want to give us referrals and not view it as an obligation, like, oh, do I have to refer you to 10 of my friends? No, they're going to want to refer you to 10 of their friends. And the final step is create opportunities. So in order to get recommendations on a demo, you have to sell yourself as much as you sell the actual product. Because in the end, if you don't make the sale, but Mr. and Mrs. Jones give you 20 recommendations, I think it was worth it. Because that's going to lead to hopefully 20 more appointments. And who knows, like one of those appointments could buy an ultimate set.
Or all of them.
Or all of them. So overall, the Midas Touch teaches us to always be prospecting. And Israel gives us an example of how, prospecting can lead to great potential. So he had just finished a demo and he was leaving, walked outside, and saw the neighbor who was working in her garden. And so he went over, introduced himself, they got to talking, and eventually it led to a demo for this lady. Now, this lady didn't buy anything, but she did recommend him to several people who she thought would be interested in taking a look at the Cutco products. And it led to $50,000 in sales that year, just by giving those 7 people. So it's not about getting lucky, it is about creating opportunities. And I want to leave you guys with a quote I came across while reading these 2 stories that really stuck with me. And it just kind of has to do with overall success in life. Everyone know the story of the Velveteen Rabbit? No. It's about this kid who gets this new Velveteen Rabbit, and the Velveteen Rabbit isn't exactly loved at first because he's new, but the kid really enjoys all the old toys. And there's one of the characters is a one-eyed, worn-down rocking horse who this child absolutely loves. And at one point the rocking horse says to the Velveteen Rabbit, to be really loved, you have to get some of your skin rubbed off. So, we're not gonna just magically get success in life. You have to work for it and you have to fail sometimes. So, thank you guys for listening.